Will the Five Nights at Freddy's movie be good or bad? With 8 years in the making, the Five Nights at Freddy's movie is finally coming to theaters on October 27th, and fans of the series get the long-awaited arrival of their beloved horror animatronics on the silver screen.
All you have to do is keep your eyes on the monitor.
Welcome to Freddy Fazbear's, where fantasy and fun come to life.
Okay.
You must be new security guard.
Can I help you, officer?
Have you met them yet?
Met who?
Them.
Five Nights at Freddy's is a frightening series about the animatronics that are possessed with the souls of murdered children. It's a really simple, interesting premise with a very complex and deep lore. Lore! Yes, to you game theory fans, I said the L word. And when I say deep lore, I mean deep. The game has a lot of Easter eggs and never fully tells you the full picture, allowing for speculation and theorizing. However, I'm not here to talk about the games. I'm here to talk about the upcoming Five Nights at Freddy's film and to discover if it will actually be entertaining or a failure of a film. To do that, we have to take a closer look at who is making the film, from the production studio to the director and to the writer, and also take a closer look at what has already been released as our strongest evidence of the film's quality. I'm doing this because I feel not enough people are being honest with how the film looks, and they are either getting overly hyped or cynical to the popular IP getting a film adaptation. And I want to give an honest, unbiased opinion from a filmmaker's perspective, not as a fan of the games or from a lore perspective, though we will be touching lightly on each of those topics just to give a more rounded out view of the FNAF IP. So who is producing this movie? Well, Blumhouse is, the makers of The Purge, and The Purge Anarchy, and The Purge Election Year, and The First Purge. Why are there so many Purge movies? Blumhouse, the makers of Paranormal Activity, Get Out, Insidious, Halloween 2018, Split, and The Forever Purge. What I'm trying to say here is Blumhouse has a mixed bag when it comes to its productions. Some of their films are really good and set a new standard for horror, while others are going to be that cheesy horror film we pull out of the DVD rack to watch for a good laugh.
We are gonna purge today, purge today. We are gonna purge today, burn this down.
But there might not be anything wrong with that, because at the end of the day, they are entertaining. Now, I may clown on the Purge movies, but the fact that they've made so many of them means they sell. The film earned $64.5 million domestically and $24.9 million outside the US, for a total of $89.3 million worldwide, with a production budget of only $3 million. And that's nothing to scoff at. That's a serious increase and shows the producers this is what people want to see. So what does this tell us? Well, Blumhouse is dedicated to make fantastic horror films and also horror films that we want to see. Films that will get people to go watch their movie, which makes me feel like there was no better studio to take over the FNAF movie than Blumhouse. If you didn't know, Warner Brothers was originally the ones who acquired the film's rights. Then, in 2017, Blumhouse is the film's new production company. When Warner Brothers did still have the rights to the FNAF movie, they stated that they wanted to collaborate with Scott Cawthon, the creator of the game, and make an intense, terrifying, and weirdly adorable film, which pleased most of the fan base that their beloved indie game was being picked up by such a big studio. Working closely with the creator meant no, or at least little, retconning. They even had a director attached to it, Gil Keenan. He was the director of Monster House, one of my favorite scary movies growing up as a kid. At first glance, it seems like it was a match made in heaven, and that the FNAF movie would be in good hands, right? Well, let's take a closer look at his other hit film, Ghostbusters Afterlife, the sequel to the Ghostbusters films ignoring the 2016 remake. Ghostbusters Afterlife takes place in 2021, where we see a sort of passing of the torch to a new set of teenage Ghostbusters. A sequel set for a modern audience, honoring the original work. And how good was this film received? It was alright. 63 critic score and a 94 audience score. So most of audiences seemed to like it. It was fine. It didn't blow my mind, but it didn't really leave a lasting impression on me. It was a safe bet of a movie, and I think if Gil stayed as director for the FNAF movie, and if Warner Brothers still kept it, the FNAF movie would only be a safe movie, which in my opinion would not make it very interesting. It would probably actually hurt the film. Some of the best movies I've seen are the out-of-the-box, risky films that dare to do something new and different. If Five Nights at Freddy's stayed at Warner Brothers, it wouldn't be any of these things. I'll dare say that Warner Brothers wanted to get rid of the FNAF movie because of how different it is from other horror films. It's not a safe bet. Even with its massive online fan base, Hollywood doesn't quite take internet culture serious yet. But I think all of that can change when the movie comes out. So the FNAF movie was originally going to be with Warner Brothers, and then it got moved over to Blumhouse. So who's the new director of the movie? In 2021, Emma Tammy was announced as the director of the film and continued to help Scott write the script for it, to which he had many revisions to. If you're like me and haven't heard of her before, she's produced and directed a fair amount of films in her history. To know if the FNAF film is going to be good, we have to take a look at the director's past work to pull comparison to her filmmaking style. Her latest work was that of the director of the Hulu series Into the Darkness, working on episodes 8 and 12 of season 2. And also of note is the 2018 film The Wind, a supernatural thriller set in the western frontier of the late 1800s. The Wind stars Caitlin Gerard as a plainswoman driven mad by the harshness and isolation of the untamed land. Just to give you an overview of the film, it's edited non-linearly, meaning scenes happen out of place on purpose, i.e. the Dunkirk style of editing. The story is about a woman who lives on a desolate farm. When some new neighbors move in near them, strange things begin happening on the land. I honestly enjoyed the film a lot and like the non-linear editing style, which is tough to do correctly. It's very much an atmospheric horror type of film, where there are very little jump scares, and it's the environments our protagonists find themselves in that is highly unsettling. So after watching this film, does it give me high or low hopes for the FNAF movie? And the answer is very high hopes. Too often is a typical jump scare used in films to get a cheap scare out of its viewers, and while effective, I can see it being overused and the main source of scares. I know. FNAF is all about jump scares. Even most of Blumhouse productions have a lot of jump scares in them. Yes, that is correct. But what is important is the ability to know the difference between atmospheric horror and jump scare horror. It's my belief that horror filmmakers out there that overuse jump scares believe having a lot of jump scares will make their film more scary, which if a 10-year-old is viewing it, they would be correct. However, if you get a filmmaker that knows atmospheric horror will turn more heads to your film, but is working with an IP that is based off of jump scares, putting the filmmaker in a position to utilize both, I think you have a combination of the greatest parts that make FNAF scary. The vibes of the game are that of being in a room with doors next to open, dark hallways, an atmosphere of unease where anything could happen at any moment. By failing at the game, you ensure a jump scare, punishing you for making the wrong action. If the film can blend atmospheric horror with a well-timed jump scare, then the FNAF movie will sit in a better place than if it only had one or the other of these two things. A lot of films fall into this category of either jump scare horror or atmospheric horror. But there is a film that I feel blends the best of both worlds quite well. Smile, a 2022 horror film with the premise of a demon that takes over people and appears near you and smiles. Ooh. On paper, this sounds kind of dumb. But if you look at how they actually made the film, a lot of it was putting our protagonist in deeply disturbing positions and turning her daily life into something she has to constantly be on defense of. To the people around her and the environment, she can't trust any of it. I believe a film like Smile is a great example of what the FNAF movie should be. Not overly used, but decently placed jump scares within an environment that is deeply disturbing to be in. Also, if we're talking about reference material for the FNAF movie, we can't be talking about reference material for the FNAF movie without mentioning Willy's Wonderland, a wacky action horror flick starring Nicolas Cage of all people, who, unsurprisingly, has to spend a night in a haunted pizzeria while animatronics try to kill him. Now, where have we heard that before? The only thing that's not a blatant ripoff of the FNAF series is that in this film, our protagonist actually fights back. This movie is so crazy and wacky that I just love it. It's 100% a case of it's so bad it's good. He plays pinball on his breaks and kills the animatronics if they try to kill him. It's so campy, but it works so well. But that's just the thing. Taking a look at this film, if it was actually a FNAF movie, it would be torn apart for being nothing like the games. Having a over-the-top protagonist and mixed acting, fans of the series would be looking for connections to the games, and ultimately, this is why it would fail. Willy's Wonderland, being distant from the FNAF series, was able to stand out on its own and not be bogged down by lore or parallels. Willy's Wonderland isn't supposed to be taken seriously, but many people in the community do take Five Nights at Freddy's seriously. This will no doubt be a challenging task for the filmmakers to overcome. However, with Scott being a part of the production, makes me feel a little bit more comfortable about the story and lore implications, and any parallels that he decides he wants in the film. So far, we've gone into why Blumhouse is a good choice for the film to get made under, and why the director is also a good choice for the film. That's good and all, but do these things really mean we will definitely have a 10 out of 10 would bang again top IGN hit of a film? Well, let's look at the material and information we already have on the film and see what we can gather from that information. Earlier this year, a bunch of popular YouTubers were invited on the set of the film shooting. Popular YouTubers like Dawko, 8-Bit Ryan, and Koryax Kenshin. Also, it was announced that Jim Henson's Creature Shop created the animatronics. Pictures of what the animatronics looked like appeared, and they looked pretty solid. They didn't look cheap or low budget, they looked authentic. And even the YouTubers talked about how good they looked. Score for the actual animatronics. Dawko also talked about how the performances were really good. I'm not sure if I would 100% take his opinion about it, because he could be going off of the excitement of being on the set to really take in whether or not the acting is good. Though I will say it is good to hear how he and the other YouTubers got a feel for filmmaking and appreciation of the craft. Also, it seems as though the filmmakers were excited to make this movie, and even Scott himself was happy with how things were going, which is always a positive sign. A positive workplace means a better product being produced. It wasn't until February 1st that we would see a teaser image from Jason Blum about the FNAF movie on Twitter. A screenshot of monitors viewing a clap slate titled Bad Cupcake, and with his caption reading Day 1 FNAF, fans were ecstatic to see the film actually being worked on after almost 8 years of it being teased to the public. We had hard proof it was being filmed, but we wouldn't see or hear anything until May 16th that Jason Blum tweeted out a series of tweets that led into the releasing of the FNAF movie poster and eventually the first teaser trailer.
Welcome to Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria, where fantasy and fun come to life. Hit it, guys. If you're watching this video, it means you've been selected as Freddy's newest security guard.
Hello?
We're going to have so much fun together.
Our first look at what the film would actually hold. Then, on June 27th, we got a full trailer showing off Shaggy, Matthew Lillard, as William Afton himself, the main antagonist of the whole FNAF series.
I always come back.
But what did these trailers reveal about the quality of the film? I think most of the gripes about the first teaser was about the red eyes of the animatronics. People were not liking how they were looking, myself included, but they seem to have fixed that in the full trailer, showing off more of a yellowish type of eye. And personally, I feel as though some shots they used CG for the animatronics and it didn't look that great. I can tell they are using CG and it didn't look believable at all to me. But there were also other scenes that had the animatronics look fantastic and realistic. And wait a minute, is that Corey?
I don't know who that dude at the end was, but he looked kind of fire.
So, some of the YouTubers mentioned earlier will be appearing in the film, as far as we know, as employees of the picture on the wall, and Corey as the taxi driver. No problems there. Honestly, I think they nailed the look and feel of the pizzeria. It feels spoopy and it feels very FNAF. I don't think looking at the animatronics that they will actually be scary, but I hope if placed in the right jump scare, they will at least get the jump scares right. Wait, security guard? Vanessa? This is supposed to be the story of the first game in the series, right? Then why is a character from Security Breach appearing? Time to rewrite the timeline, MatPat. Also, the fact that we get to see so clearly and plainly the ghosts of the children, where in the games we don't see them at all, feels very off-putting. Like, if they made them more mysterious and unknown like they were in the games, that it would have a stronger effect. Point deducted. And seeing Freddy's head in the taxi in the end with the blue eyes makes me feel like the good soul was placed inside of Freddy, and it makes me feel like they already ruined the whole plot of the first movie already. But that's more of a gripe with movie trailers in general than the problem of the film, which I can make a whole video about movie trailers themselves. All that to say, as a fan, there are some choices here that I think will hurt the movie. However, as a filmmaker, I feel as though some of the choices were deliberate to make the film more comfortable with audiences. I feel like a lot of people who would watch this will be a FNAF fan. But we have to remember, this film is more for general audiences who are not exactly FNAF fans. This movie is not to cater to us, the FNAF community, it's to extend the brand of FNAF to a lot more people. People who don't play the video games, or people who don't have time to watch every single one of MatPat's videos explaining the lore. By extension, it is for us, because we will see it just because of the name. But the goal of this film is to get more people into FNAF, which I think a movie is the best way to get your dad, mom, or aunt into this franchise. If this film is mostly atmospheric horror with a handful of jump scares, I, as a filmmaker, will be pleased. If they reveal some key information that the FNAF community got wrong or overlooked, or if they give a bit more detail into something we never fully understood, as a fan, I would be happy. So, to finally answer the question of if the FNAF movie will be good or bad, the answer is... beauty is in the eye of the beholder. An artist's subject. Now that's a cop-out of an ending. The true answer to whether or not the FNAF movie will be a good or bad film will be hidden within this box. To get the answer, you have to click the subscribe button. But hey, while you wait for that box to be open, you can check out my other videos I did on the crazy exciting multiverse of the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once, right here on the screen. Or check out my deep dive into the menu to see what they're really cooking up over there. We'll see you next time, because we're moving on.